All right, guys, welcome in. This is going to be a new format of video that I'm hoping to, do more of in the future. Not really sure what I'm going to call it yet, but today it's going to be called the Gasser Rundown or something like that. So I put together a list of topics, as you can see on the screen. Go over the Four Crown, we'll go over Tulare, we'll go over the Hocket. Go over some news, some stats, some rumors possibly that are floating around out there. I'll make some picks for this weekend, and then go over some stuff that I got upcoming. So let's get right into it here with this schedule. 17 races this weekend. Most of them are 2 to 3 day shows. You got High Limit at Eldora for the Four Crown. You have Outlaws at Tulare for the Roth Classic. IRA, MSTS, and NOSA are at Jackson. POWRi's got 3-day race starting tonight for the Hocket McMillan Memorial. PA Posse's at Williams Grove on Friday and BAPS on Saturday this weekend. Skagit's got 410s weekly. Fremont and Wayne County are racing in Ohio. Butler's got weekly racing. Farmington's got weekly racing. And out in Western PA, PPMS is racing. So 17 races, kind of light for the normal 410 slate. I guess there's usually about 20, 25 that get in. So getting right into the Four Crown, have some expected entries up here. Macri, Tim Schaefer, PPM, Torgerson, Brady Bacon, Steven Snyder, Chase Dietz, Caleb Henry, Sterling Kling, Darren Nida, Casey Jetterzak, Jeremy Weaver, Creed Kemenade, Joel Myers Jr. Expect a bunch more than that. These are guys that I've just seen confirmed to be there. Some notes, Rico holds the point lead. He extended it last night at Lawrenceburg. He's got a 39-point lead over Brad in the driver's points and a 24-point lead over RSR in the owner's points. So still a really tight battle. I think there's about 9 or 10 races left on the schedule, so anything can happen there with the high limit points battle. Couple notes about some guys on the entry list here. Steven Snyder Jr., Parker Price Miller have both shown speed at Eldora this year. Snyder was really good at during the Kings Royal weekend, and PPM was good for the All-Star show, and I want to say maybe an Ohio Speed Week show too. He showed really good speed there. I think he ultimately broke in one of those races, but he was really good. Dason Pursley recently has been absolutely killing it. He's been killing it in time trials. He's got 6 top 10 finishes in his last 10 races. And don't forget, he was leading the All-Star race at, I think it was the Ohio Speed Week race at Eldora earlier this year. And then he ran over some debris, ripped the oil line off the car or something and didn't finish. But Pursley definitely knows how to get around Eldora, and I think he will have a strong weekend. With Corey Day not being there, Larson not being there, and then the Outlaws obviously being out west, so the only drivers in the field that have wins this year are going to be Reitzel, Macri, and Abreu. So, I think those are probably the 3 favorites going into the weekend. Can't really count out Brent Marks, can't count out Brad Sweet, but I think Rico's been super fast all year, obviously, and Macri is just coming off the Kings Royal win. So moving into Tulare, a couple entries here that I've seen. You got Spencer Baston will be in the Tarleton car, DJ Neto, Shane Golovic, Dominic Selzy back in his 41, Max Mitri in the 2X, Landon Brooks in the 21, Ryan Bernal will be in the 73, Corey Lyson in the 45, Caleb Montgomery, Jace Park, I believe, is in a snow racing car, last I saw. And Joe Ancona, Dominic Gordon, Dylan Bloomfield, Chance Grassy, Caden Steele, Tim Kading, and Tanner Holmes. So like the Four Crown. There will be more guys than are what listed here. That's just these are just a few guys that I've seen and that are going to be there. Couple notes for this race: Tanner Holmes and Caden Steele split twin 20s at Tulare earlier this year, and DJ Neto picked up a 360 win. With Justin Sanders being at Eldora, I think that Shane Golobic and DJ Neto probably have to be the favorites outside of the regular outlaws. Baston's been really good recently, so he'll probably be in the top 10, battling around the top 5. I think Carson Macedo is probably the favorite. He's been really good since Knoxville. He just blew a motor in the last race, so his average finish dropped a little bit. But looking over here, since Knoxville, Buddy Kofoid with a 2.5 average finish, David Gravel with a 4.0, and Macedo with a 5.2. So Macedo won the race last year. Gravel won a prelim. I think all three of these guys are the favorites to win this race. One of the biggest paying races. I feel like it just quietly is an $83,000 to win race. A lot of other things going on with Four Crown, and there's just so many high paying races now. But this is one of them, and it's a big one for the Outlaws. It's a big one for the West Coast guys, and honestly, I think outside of these three guys, a local guy does have a small chance to take home some big money this week. Last thing, Donnie Schatz still winless this year. I didn't actually look up the last time that has happened, but I would assume that it's probably 20 plus years ago. So pretty crazy. He will be in the W with Paul Silva this weekend. Tulare's kind of a giddy up track, not really Donnie's style, but I think Paul will get him dialed in. And you can just never count him out, regardless of how poorly his season has gone and how dramatic things have gone. I just don't think you can count Donnie out. Switching over to the Hocket, this one's going to be a fun one. 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Solid entry list. These guys aren't all confirmed, and honestly, I'm a little bit confused by what I just saw, so don't quote me on these entries, but I believe Scott Boguski will be there, Sammy Swindell, the Power Eye guys, Joe B. Miller, Ayrton Jenton, Scotty Milan, Hank Davis coming off his first 410 win in the Beaver 12X. Austin McCarl, I think Austin McCarl is going to be there. If he's not going to be there, he's probably going to be at Jackson. Maybe he'll be there tonight and then he'll be at Jackson. I don't know. Jack Wagner, Sean Rahal, Ryan Newton, who's been, all over the Midwest, and, he's usually sticking to PA and Western PA, but, racing a lot in the Midwest here. He will be there. Landon Crawley, Jake Buback, who did win this race last year and then was ultimately disqualified, giving the win to Scott Boguski. Howard Moore, Jake Newman, I don't think that's right, but because I think Jake Newman's running for IRA points, so but it could be right. I don't know. Ryder, and then some young guys, Ryder McCutcheon and Braden Chiaramonte. These were the two guys that I was kind of confused about, more so Chiaramonte. I don't know, maybe he's just in the Midwest now racing and not out West, but, if he is there at Lucas Oil, look for him to be exciting. Definitely a young, talented kid who's still trying to put it together in a winged 410. And I think, with more time behind the wheel, he'll definitely be, one of the better drivers on the West Coast in the next couple of years. Other notes, Ayrton Jenneton still holds a narrow lead over Joby Miller for the 50,000 to win Power Eye title. They got a weird point system, so Jenneton leads by over 100, but with the way their points works, that's only one race, I think. So Joby Miller was leading that 2 or 3 weeks ago, so definitely a tight battle there. I think Jake Buback, Ayrton Jenneton are two guys that have chances to win, as well as Austin McCarl, Scott Boguski. All have been fast at Lucas Oil in the past. So Going into some stats that I compiled, I posted this graphic today, but just wanted to go over it. This is average finish versus the World of Outlaws and High Limit in their last 14 races. I wanted to do 15, but two guys that are on here only have 14 starts versus the national tours this year. So it ended up being, 15 for everyone except them two, except for Justin Sanders and Ryan Smith, who have 14 starts. So, the thing that sticks out to me is, just how hard it is to come up with a good average finish versus these national tours. You would think that, every time Macri shows up in races, he's usually in the top 10. But, with things that like he just comes off the Tuscarora where he lost an engine, he had, he won the King's Royal, but, one of the nights, I think at the Joker's Jackpot, he had issues and had a bad finish. So, his average finish could be a lot better. The same could be said about Justin Sanders. Spencer Basin, since getting let go, some of these numbers are with the Myers 14, but, still really good numbers. And Ryan Timms, you would think he would also be a little bit higher, but his prelim win is technically not sanctioned by the Outlaws, so it's not included in this. His Knoxville Nationals victory is, but yeah, not the prelim win. And he's also had some DNFs and some issues in some of these big races. So his finish suffered a little bit. Corey Liasson and Ashton Torgerson, super consistent recently. Two guys that, I wouldn't be surprised to see them on a national tour next year. I know that Torgerson will be back in the 1A next year. I just don't know if that's going to be a similar thing to what they're doing now or if it's going to be a larger schedule. But that could be an exciting thing to watch out for. Some people aren't the biggest fan of Torgerson. I think he's an exciting young driver that's still learning the ropes, and he definitely has made his fair share of mistakes this year, but is definitely getting better. Ryan Smith in the 69K is having a resurgence of a season. I think, it's easy to say that, oh, he's driving the 69K, like the car's carrying him, but he's had some good runs in that 6 car that he races as well. And the 69K, as fast as it is, it's also had its fair share of issues, mechanical failures this year. But, I think it's a testament to Ryan Smith's ability that he's on this list, ahead of some really talented guys. Moving into the rumor mill, obviously disclaimer, none of this stuff is confirmed. That's why they're rumors. But just some things that I've heard that people have told me that could be in the works here. So, Donnie Schatz, Gio Scelzi, and Sheldon Haudenschild, all free agents. I've heard that, all 3 of those guys are close to or have already solidified plans for next season. I don't know what those plans are. I've heard what those plans might be. And if that stuff does come to fruition, I think it's actually some pretty exciting stuff. So I don't think any of that stuff is going to be, announced, soon, but definitely, look for announcements from those 3. Maybe the first 3 announcements of silly season. Another thing I heard, some people thought with Sheldon leaving, the Stenhouse Marshall 17, that ride might shut down. I've heard differently. I've heard that they've been talking to people and might have a driver or, might be looking for a driver. So, that's good news as well. If that's true, we don't want to lose any more teams. I know people were upset about the TSR and Rico news because we're losing a car, but I think, we could be gaining a car or 2. And, I think the national tours are pretty crowded. I think, if you want to see 24 to 26 guys out there, I think that's a good number. And I think we're above that right now. So I don't think it's the end of the world if we lose 1 car on the national tours, especially if some of these rumors come true. Again, I've heard some teams are considering swapping from the Outlaws to High Limit, or even the other direction. You know, High Limit to the Outlaws. Nothing official there. Obviously, we know TSR is going to be moving over, but that comes with Rico. And then the Vermeer 55 and the CJB5 remain the two hottest cars that are being talked about. So some hot takes, with the exception of Macri and Sanders. I think, there are not many drivers out there ready for a national tour. Obviously Ryan Timms' name is gonna pop up a bunch, but he himself has said that he's not ready, and wants to continue what he's doing with the Liebig team, and I think that's a smart decision. The numbers say that Spencer Basin is probably one of the best free agents out there, and still honestly deserves to be on a national tour. I don't know if that will happen or what his plans will be, but I think that when you look at the group of guys that legitimately could fill one of these open seats, then Basin is at the top of the list. And with the way that Corey Eliason has been racing in the Wheatley car, he's really not too far behind him. So those are two guys that constantly got some backslash, saying that they probably were not deserving of their seat, or not deserving to be on a national tour. But I just think it's all about finding the right fit for these guys, and I think that there is a ride out there for Baston that he could succeed in. So then my last hot take is, with the All-Star season wrapping up, with Cale Thomas winning the owner's title, and Caleb Henry winning the driver's title, I'd like to see the All-Stars grow, grow the talent pool next year. I'd like to see PPM, Landon Crawley, Cap Henry, Torgerson, Boguski, guys of that caliber, guys, in that category. I'd like to see them race with the All-Stars full-time next year. I'd like maybe the All-Stars to add 5 races to their schedule. I think they had 30 this year, maybe go for 35 next year, and up the ante a little bit. So I think there's potential there with the All-Stars. They had their hiccups, but they ultimately, I think they had a good season, and put on some really good racing. Okay, switching to the weekend picks. We got 4 Crown. I'm going Macri. I'm going Rico. Little bonus on the non-wing. I'm going Briggs Danner and Justin Grant. I think I don't even know the schedule for USAC. Honestly, I didn't look at it. So if they're racing more than 3 times or 2 times, then I'm picking Danner and Grant more than once. Tulare, I'm going Macedo, and I'm going a surprise victory, maybe in the prelim, of Kerry Madsen. Madsen's been pretty quick, in the last 3 or 4 races, and I just think that Tulare kind of suits him. Even he probably hasn't raced there in a while, but I think that he could surprise some people this weekend. So Kerry Madsen is my hot take pick of the week. The Hockett, if Austin McCarl's there, I think he's got a good chance to win one. Bubak and Ayrton Genitin have a lot of laps around there. I think they'll be good. I think Ryan Timms will be at Jackson with IRA, and if he's there, he's going to win everything. Wherever Ryan Timms is, he's probably going to win. That's just how it goes lately. Elsewhere, give me Dietrich at Baps. Give me Freddie. Give me Zerafos at Williams Grove for a back-to-back. Give me Cap Henry at Fremont. AJ Flick at PPMS. Sold at Skagit. And yeah, coming soon, the Gasser's store. T-shirts, stickers, koozies. Not quite sure when this will be ready. Probably sometime in October, I'm hoping. Still working out some things, still getting some things situated, but hope to have the store up and running and ready to go for everyone. So yeah, so that's kind of the video. kind of what I'm hoping to do. I don't want to promise that this is going to be weekly, but if I do have time, I do want to kind of do stuff like this. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.